right, Robert here from AKMmusic.com, teaching you how to master the art of playing the piano by ear in 1 year. And I will be one step closer once you understand all the principles of the any key music system. How you doing today? I hope you are doing great. We are on this webinar and we're going to be covering 5 questions that you asked. You know, obviously at the last webinar, I said, okay, what questions do you have? And a couple of you guys submitted, or I took some questions there. So I'm going to answer those, all right? So we're not going to be too long. So you're going to be able to get back to your practice and apply everything that I'm going to teach you, all right? So the 5 questions that people asked were, or the NK Music members asked, they asked, how do you approach finding the key of a song and identifying the numbers by ear? Number 2, how do you transpose and go from one key to another in a song? Number 3, what do you do with all these numbers? Number 4, how do you use the AKMS principles to play the old gospel style? And number 5, can you demonstrate using the AKMS principles on chord charts? All right, so I'm going to be addressing all those 5 things. However, I'm going to rearrange that order to kind of fit with what I want to do today. All right, so the first question I want to address is, what do you do with all these numbers? Now, that was actually asked from a new member or a new member that completed level 1, and now they're at level 2. So they're just getting introduced to how to play in every key and identifying things as numbers and so forth. So they're saying, why is it so important? Why it's all these numbers? You know, obviously we're doing the volume 2 exercises where we have to actually play each number. So if you have to go 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 6. We got to play 1, 2, 6. Speaking of 1, 2, 6, let's do this. All right. Let's make this an interactive exercise. So if you're in front of your piano, we're going to play some of these numbers right now. Okay. Just very quickly. 1. All right. We can do a little faster. All right. So 1, you're just going to go 1, 2, 6, key of F, 1, 2. All right. Let's do it. All right. Actually, let's change that beat. Let's use this one. A little more tempo. 1, 2, we're going to play 1, 2, 6, go. Give F, B flat. You know the order. A flat, C sharp, F sharp, D, E, A, and G. And last but not least, G. All right, let's do one more. Let's do our 7, our 4, and then our 3. All right, so 7, 4, 3. 1, 2, ready, go. Get back. E flat, E flat, A flat, C sharp, F sharp, D, E, and G. Now, I know you probably weren't planning on doing some of that work, eh? Well, I know you were planning on doing that work. But anyways, whenever I get a chance, I got to tell you, that's the most important thing in this system. You got to be able to do that. So what's the deal with all of those numbers? Why are we doing all those exercises? Because numbers tell us how to understand what we're hearing. That's our interpreter. All right. So when we hear sounds, when we're hearing those sounds, the numbers are telling us really what those sounds are saying. So if I was hearing someone speak Russian, I can't speak Russian. So if I heard them speak, it just sound like words or something, but those words I don't understand. So numbers are the interpretation of the sound that you're hearing. All right. So when you actually have those numbers, because later on we're going to go into something that I call modes. All right. I didn't create modes. Modes is just a brilliant concept. Modes is, so for example, let's say a mode is like the lights. So as you can see it's nice and bright right now, right? But what if I did this? Well, it's not that dark because you're seeing my hand. How about this? A little darker, all right? Okay, but you get the drift. So what happens is when it's dark, you can't see as much as you can, all right? So things are not as visible as possible, all right? So, however, when you now apply this to music, what it does, it allows you, when you actually understand modes, it allows you to play what you should play and not play what you shouldn't play. All right. So for example, I'll give you an example. When we know every single key, how to play in every single key, there won't be no surprises. So if, let's say I was playing C, okay? So I'm playing C, and the bass is just jumping on C. Now C, if I just heard it, like for example, you can see the difference of perfect pitch method and the any key music system. If you just hear this one key, you might not know what it is, all right? So basically, if you hear C, it can be anything. It can be one of 12 things. So it's not enough to interpret it. All you're doing is just interpreting. That's a sound, all right? But you don't have the context. However, with the proper understanding of numbers, what you can do now is, let's say this is C, I think of it as a 1, all right? So modes allow you to play, know what you should play and what you shouldn't play, as I said before. Now, let me just give you this quick, quick story. Now, growing up, you know, because I didn't take any lessons, all right? At age 7, when I started to play in different keys, I started to see certain patterns, and my eyes started to open, all right? That's another reason why you got to play all these numbers, because your eyes open musically to see what is possible with music and everything that you can do. Now, what happened was I said, you know, I would tell everybody all the time, you know, because I wasn't, let's say, trained, I would say, let's say I had to play, right? I can see those numbers and so forth. However, I didn't call them numbers at the time. I would say, okay, if I had to play in, you know, let's say I had to play in E major, right? I'd tell someone, I'd say, it's so simple. It's like E is C. So if E was C, then you'd be like this, you know, that's a 5-1. I didn't say 5-1. I said, this is like a G, C, E, E, D, C, A, G. Now, as you can see, that is pretty complex, right? So they couldn't get that. Now, the people that transposed could probably decipher that. Quick plug, never transpose in your life, ever. That's the worst key that holds you back, period. So if you do it, stop. Get started, complete volumes 2, and you'll never have a transpose issue in your life ever again. And you know, I have 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds playing in every key, 9-year-olds. All right, playing in every key at once they complete volume 2. So if they can do it, definitely you can do it. All right. So now with modes, so I would interpret everything as C. So I would see B flat as the key of C. However, I knew what I was talking about. I was talking about numbers. So when I started using the term numbers, I'm like, oh yeah, this is so much easier. I can just call it a number, and it still has my mindset of seeing everything in one key, in C. Okay. So basically, so when I learned about modes, I'm like, oh my gosh, my theory is now a fact. It's right. It works. Modes allow you to see in different keys. So let me give you a quick demonstration. So if you had C, we can think of C, yes, in the key of C, it's 1. So guess what? In the key of C, you can see all the notes. They're all 1. So I can touch anything in the key of C because it's all white. It's going to work. Now, what if C was the 3rd? Okay? What key is C the 3rd in? Okay, I'll give you 2 seconds to answer that. 1, 2. And by the way, that's me being gracious. You should be able to answer that within a split second or within 1 second or less. Okay, now the 3rd, and by now you would have figured it out if you did your major scales, or this is the reason why you need to know all of your major numbers, okay, which are just 1 to 7. You know, it's the 3rd in the key of A flat. So if it's the 3rd in E flat, then what happens is I think of it as E flat. So let's say I had C major, right, as the 1. Now I'm going to switch it to a 3. And I switched it back to the 1. So what modes does, it switches the on and off button of what you can and what you can't play. But it all stems from knowing the numbers in each key. So I can jump from the 1 to the 3 to the 4. Actually, no, I played a living flat 7. That's another move we'll get to another time. But so I'll switch from the 1 to the 3 to the 2. All I'm doing is switching keys in my head. And believe it or not, music is not any harder than that. That's why I say to people all the time, trust me, just complete all these exercises, these basic exercises. They may seem basic, but they're very advanced. I'm teaching you how to not play well. I'm teaching you how to think well. Once you think well, then your playing has to follow what you think. The majority of times when people, like with the regular courses where they're just showing people stuff, they'll play it, but we haven't dealt with the mindset. We haven't dealt with what they're thinking in their head. So they get flustered or they can't see it. So that's why in the AKMS music system, you know that we're going to go through and master those foundational things that you need to really play real music and succeed. So you don't have to keep on coming back. All right. Once you get it, you understand it, you move on. So that is the reason why for all the numbers. I mean, that's in a nutshell. There's about 20 different reasons why we need numbers, but that's the most important. All right. So let's go to question number 2 that I'm going to address. Question number 2 is, how do you transpose and go from one key to another? Okay. So how do we transpose and go from one key to another? Well, number one, not number one. Never transpose with the transpose button, as I said before, because if I was the president, guess what? I'd put you in jail for transposing. Okay? So in terms of the transpose, let's say we're playing R1. Okay? So let's go to the board here. All right? Let's say we're going from our 1. Okay? We're playing R1 for 4 beats. And then let's say I'm going to go to my 4. Let's say it's major chord, and then it goes to my 1 again. However, I want to get back to the 1 of a new key. All right, now I'm talking numbers. So let's do it like this. Okay, so in this, let's say if this was in key of C, this would be obviously C. Number 4 would be what? What would number 4 be in the key of C? Tell me exactly. Okay, and number 1 we said is C. So let's say, and I want to now take it to the key of C sharp. Okay, so I want to get to C sharp, and C sharp is the new 1. So there are different ways that you can get there, and I'm going to teach you different types of approaches that you can take and different things that you can do. But one way that you can transpose, the most common, and especially if you're doing it with a singer or singers, they need to get a lead in terms of what to know, what to expect. So let's say they were singing, just for the sake of the example, all right? So that the last part. So they would probably need a lead in sometimes. A lot of singers can get it, but then there's a lot of singers that can't get that key. So you have to lead them in. So what's the most common thing is for the last 2 beats, what you can do, is add a 5. All right, so let's say I change this. We're adding a 5. So what do you mean by the 5? Well, simply that. However, this 5 is now the 5 of the new key. Okay, I'm just going to put new. Okay, so this 5 is now the 5 of the new key. So it has to be the 5 of C sharp. So do you see why number 1 is important? Because the question of what do you do with all these numbers? Well, you have to know the numbers within 1 second so you can do this in real time. So for example, I know what the 5 is in the key of C sharp, and you should know it. If you don't, complete volumes, volume 2. Okay. So let's say I'm at now my 1. All right. So the last part of the song, I go to the 5 of the new key. And then they play. And obviously, you know what the 5 of the new key is. All right. So, and then when you have the 5, it just kind of sets it up nicer. Now, obviously, I use the basic chord. Let's say I put a secondary slash chord, which is what we obviously learned in volume 4. Let's say instead of the regular 5, I'm going to make it into a slash chord. All right. And obviously, I go into the details on how we get the 4 over 5. I never say this, just do this to the 4 over 5. If you just do that, guarantee you won't get it. When you understand how I got it, you'll be able to create about probably another 20 combinations of this. All right. So it's more important to understand the 20 combinations. How do you got that in terms of the principle rather than just me showing you a whole bunch of chords, which doesn't really help if you don't understand how to play. All right. So let's say I'm going to put a 4 over 5 instead, which would be what? For those of you obviously that are in volume 4, would this be a primary slash chord or would this be a secondary slash chord? Okay, I'll let you figure that out. Okay, so let's say at the end, well, actually, why am I doing 1 and 4 when the end of the song, when I have a 1, 4, and 1 here? So let me do what I have written here, which is 1, 4, 1, and then the 5. So I had 1 to the 4 to the 1 to the 5 to the new key. All right. So now I'll put the nicer chord. I'll put nicer chords all over, but you'll hear the 4 or 5 on the last one. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it takes us nicely to the new key. What about this? Let's say we're still in the key of C. Let's say now we're going to the key of D. Okay? We're going to the key of D. Does it work there as well? Yes, it does. However, I need to know what is the 5, or the 4 and the 5, in the key of D. Okay? So this, all right, so let's say I'm in the key of C. Right? I'm now going to my 4, and to my 1, now to the 5. Right? Now, if it was a song that you heard, let's say, Oh, and the Saints. I'm going to the key of D. Right? So I need a 4 or 5. Do you see that? It works nicely. Let's say, let's keep on going up. Let's go up another semitone. Let's say I went up to E flat. Okay? Does it work? Of course it does. I want to get, so I'm going to use my 4 or 5. All right? These are the most common. There are other ones that you can do, but right now we'll start here. Okay? So let's say we're in the key of C, right? To our 4, right? To our 1, and now to the 5 of the new key. All right, and do you see how it just works nicely? All right, I hope you're getting the idea. Just play a 5 of the new key. So once again, that's why you need to understand the numbers. I hope you got that, all right? So let's go to question number 3. Question number 3 is, how do you approach finding the key of a song, identifying the numbers by ear? Okay,